Greetings everybody, and welcome to day 5 of Marvel May 2019. Before I begin today's review, I just want to tell you guys that I saw Avengers Endgame and holy crap, it was awesome! So there you go. But anywho, it's time to look at the penultimate movie in Phase 1 of the MCU, Captain America, the First Avenger. So just like all the other movies, I'll be looking at the plot, the production, and then the music. So, without further ado, here we go. In the present day, scientists in the Arctic uncover an old, frozen aircraft. In March 1942, Nazi officer Johann Schmidt and his men steal a mysterious relic called the Tesseract, which possesses untold powers, from the town of Tonsberg in German-occupied Norway. In New York City, Steve Rogers is rejected for World War II military recruitment because of various health and physical problems. While attending an exhibition of future technologies with his friend, Sergeant James "Bucky" Barnes, Rogers again attempts to enlist. Overhearing Rogers' conversation with Barnes about wanting to help in the war, Dr. Abraham Erskine allows Rogers to enlist. He is recruited into the Strategic Scientific Reserve as part of a super soldier experiment under Erskine, Colonel Chester Phillips, and British agent Peggy Carter. Phillips is unconvinced by Erskine's claims that Rogers is the right person for the procedure, but relents after seeing Rogers commit an act of self-sacrificing bravery. The night before the treatment, Erskine reveals to Rogers that Schmidt underwent an imperfect version of the procedure and suffered permanent side effects. Schmidt and Dr. Arnim Zola harness the energies of the Tesseract, intending to use the power to fuel Zola's inventions, mounting an offensive that will change the world. Schmidt discovers Erskine's location and dispatches assassin Heinz Kruger to kill him. Erskine subjects Rogers to the super soldier treatment, injecting him with special serum and dosing him with Vita rays. After Rogers emerges from the experiment taller and more muscular, an undercover Kruger kills Erskine and flees. Rogers pursues and captures Kruger, but the assassin avoids interrogation by committing suicide with a cyanide capsule. With Erskine dead and his super soldier formula lost, U.S. Senator Brand has Rogers tour the nation in a colorful costume as Captain America to promote war bonds, while scientists study him and attempt to reverse engineer the formula. In 1943, while on tour in Italy performing for active servicemen, Rogers learns that Barnes' unit was MIA in a battle against Schmidt's forces. Refusing to believe that Barnes is dead, Rogers has Carter and engineer Howard Stark fly him behind enemy lines to mount a solo rescue attempt. Rogers infiltrates the fortress of Schmidt's Nazi division Hydra, freeing Barnes and the other prisoners. Rogers confronts Schmidt, who removes a mask to reveal a red, skull-like visage, earning him the sobriquet the Red Skull. Schmidt escapes, and Rogers returns to base with the freed soldiers. Rogers recruits Barnes, Dum-Dum Dugan, Gabe Jones, Jim Rita, James Montgomery Falsworth, and Jacques Dernier to attack other known Hydra bases. Stark outfits Rogers with advanced equipment, most notably a circular shield made of vibranium, a rare, nearly indestructible metal. Rogers and his team sabotage various Hydra operations. In 1945, the team assaults a train carrying Zola. Rogers and Jones succeed in capturing Zola, but Barnes falls from the train to his assumed death. Using information extracted from Zola, the final Hydra stronghold is located, and Rogers leads an attack to stop Schmidt from using weapons of mass destruction on major American cities. Rogers climbs aboard Schmidt's aircraft as it takes off. During the subsequent fight, the Tesseract's container is damaged. Schmidt physically handles the Tesseract, which opens a wormhole into space, sucking him into it. Oh gee, I wonder where he ended up. The Tesseract burns through the plane and is lost in the ocean. Seeing no way to land the plane without risk of detonating its weapons, Rogers crashes it in the Arctic. Stark later recovers the Tesseract from the ocean floor, but is unable to locate Rogers or the aircraft, presuming him dead. Rogers awakens in a 1940s-style hospital room. Deducing from an anachronistic radio broadcast that something is wrong, he flees outside and finds himself in present-day Times Square, where S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury informs him that he has been asleep for nearly 70 years. In a post-credits scene, Fury approaches Rogers and proposes a mission with worldwide ramifications. I wonder what that mission could possibly be. Well, anyway, let's look at the production of this movie, beginning with development. In April 1997, Marvel was in negotiations with Mark Gordon and Gary Levinson to produce Captain America, and Larry Wilson and Leslie Bowen were set to write a script. In May 2000, Marvel teamed with Artisan Entertainment to help finance the film. However, a lawsuit arose between Marvel Comics and Joe Simon over the ownership of Captain America copyrights, disrupting the development process of the film. The lawsuit was eventually settled in September 2003. In 2005, Marvel received a $525 million investment from Merrill Lynch, allowing them to independently produce 10 films, including Captain America. Paramount Pictures agreed to distribute the film. Originally, the film would be standalone. Producer Kevin Feige said, quote, about half the movie would be set during World War II before moving into the modern day. Producer Avi Arad said, quote, the biggest opportunity with Captain America is a man out of time, coming back today, looking at our world through the eyes of someone who thought the perfect world was small, tiny United States. 60 years go by, and who are we today? Are we better? He cited the Back to the Future trilogy as an influence, and claimed he had, quote, someone in mind to be the star, and definitely someone in mind to be the director. In February 2006, Arad hoped to have a summer 2008 theatrical release date. Jon Favreau approached Arad to direct the film as a comedy, but he chose to make Iron Man instead. In April 2006, David Self was hired to write the script. He explained that Captain America was his favorite superhero as a child because, quote, my dad told me I could one day be Captain America. Joe Johnston met with Marvel to discuss directing the film. Captain America was put on hold during the 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild of America strike. However, in January 2008, Marvel Entertainment reached an interim comprehensive agreement with the Writers Guild of America that would put writers immediately back to work on various projects that were under the company's development. On May 5, 2008, after the success of Iron Man, Marvel announced the film The First Avenger, Captain America, the working title, for release on May 6, 2011, before May 2nd. Louis Leterrier, director of The Incredible Hulk, viewed some of the concept art being created for the film and was impressed enough to offer his services, but Marvel turned him down. Johnson finally signed on in November 2008, and he hired Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely to rewrite. Feige cited Johnson's directorial work on October Sky and The Rocketeer, and his special effects work on the original Star Wars trilogy, to explain why he was an appropriate choice. Raiders of the Lost Ark was an influence on the film, because they hoped the film would not feel like a period piece. When asked whether anti-US sentiments would affect the film's box office, Feige said, quote, Marvel's perceived pretty well around the world right now, and I think putting another uber Marvel hero into the worldwide box office would be a good thing. We have to deal with much the same way that Captain America, when thawed from the Arctic ice, entered a world he did not recognize, similar to the way Stan Lee and Jack Kirby reintroduced the character in the 1960s. Likewise, Arad noted, quote, Captain America stands for freedom in all democracies, for hope all around the world. It was created to stop tyranny, and the idea of stopping tyranny is important today as it was then. So I think we will have some interesting challenges, but at the end of the day, if the movie is terrific, and the movie talks to the world, it's not about one place, it's about the world, and I think on that basis it'll be very successful. Later, after the election of U.S. President Barack Obama, Feige commented, quote, the idea of change and hope has permeated the country, regardless of politics, and that includes Hollywood. Discussions in all our development meetings include the zeitgeist and how it's changed in the last 2 weeks. Things are being adjusted. Yeah, that's definitely true. Now let's move on to the pre-production side of things. In December 2009, Joe Johnston indicated that he planned to start filming in April 2010. In a separate interview that month, he described the film's pre-production, quote, Rick Hendricks is production designing and we're setting up down in Manhattan Beach, California. We have 8 or 10 really talented artists, and we just sit around all day and draw pictures and say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? It's that phase of the production where money doesn't matter. Let's put all the greatest stuff up on the wall and then later see what we can afford. The film, he said, will begin, quote, in 1943 during World War II. Quote, the stuff in the 60s and 70s comic books we're sort of avoiding. We're going back to the 40s, and then forward to what they're doing with Captain America now. In February 2010, Johnson stated the invaders will appear in, quote, the entire second half of the film, leading fans to speculate that this was the World War II-era Marvel superhero team of that name. In November, Johnson refuted speculation that the Submariner, Invaders team member of the comics, would be included. Johnson later explained that, quote, the Invaders have been discussed simply as a possible name for the squad of commandos Captain America leads in the film. Christopher Marcus, one of the screenwriters, said the unnamed group was quote, called the Howling Commandos in the script, but no one says that out loud. That's weird. The design as a whole tried to create technology that could be built in the 1940s, though with the added cube technology in Hydra's case. Abandoned Nazi projects or actual vehicles from the period were used as inspiration. Daniel Simon, who was previously responsible for many vehicle designs in Tron Legacy, was appointed lead vehicle designer. Director Johnson cited Simon's book Cosmic Motors as a reason to trust his influence, saying, quote, he's the sort of guy I wanted to be when I was designing stuff for Star Wars. The Red Soul's car, for instance, was based on two Mercedes-Benz vehicles from the 1930s, the 540K and the G4. Nice. Variety reported in March 2010 that Chris Evans was cast as Captain America and Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull. Marvel Studios confirmed the latter in May. Ryan Phillippe and John Krasinski were also considered for the role of Captain America. In April 2010, Sebastian Stan, who had been mentioned in media accounts as a possibility for the title role, was cast as Bucky Barnes. Stan is contracted for multiple films. Also in April, Marvel announced that Haley Atwell had been cast as Peggy Carter, and that the film's name had been changed from the First Avenger, Captain America, to Captain America, the First Avenger. The next day, it was reported that Joss Whedon would be rewriting the script as part of his negotiation to write and direct the Avengers. Whedon said in August, "I just got to make some character connections. The structure of the thing was really tight, and I loved it, but there were a couple of opportunities to find his voice a little bit, and some of the other characters, make the connections so that you understood exactly why he wanted to be who he wanted to be, and progressing through the script to flesh it out a little bit." Samuel Jackson revealed in an interview that he would reprise his role as Nick Fury in the film. Yay! In May, Toby Jones entered final negotiations to play Arnim Zola. Iron Man director Jon Favreau said a younger Howard Stark would appear in the film, played by Dominic Cooper. Atwell revealed that Tommy Lee Jones would have a role in the film. By June, Neil McDonough was in talks to play Dum Dum Dugan. 4 days later, he confirmed he was taking that part. The same day, Stanley Tucci joined the cast as Dr. Abraham Erskine, the scientist who created the super soldier serum. In November 2013, McDonough revealed that he has signed on to appear in multiple projects for Marvel, not limited to films. Now anyway, on to filming. Principal photography began on June 28, 2010, with the working title Frostbite. On the same day, Marvel confirmed that Tommy Lee Jones had been cast to play U.S. Army Colonel Chester Phillips. The next day, Marvel confirmed that Dominic Cooper would portray the younger version of Howard Stark, the character played by John Slattery in Iron Man 2. It was announced that the film would shoot in London in late July and was expected to include key scenes featuring London landmarks. 4 scenes were filmed in September at the former Royal Navy propellant factory in the Welsh village of Caerwent. Filming was scheduled to take place that month in the northern quarter of Manchester, where parts of the 2004 film Alfie and the 2009 Sherlock Holmes had been shot, followed by the Stanley Dock area of Liverpool, while doubling for the period's Lower East Side of Manhattan. Further scenes were scheduled to be shot in Liverpool's Albert Dock. Johnson included a scene of a technology fair that includes in passing a display case containing the 1940s android superhero known as the original Human Torch. Another character, like Captain America, in comics was published by Marvel Comics' predecessor, Timely Comics. Interesting. In 2010, Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige said that both this film and Thor will be released in 3D. Johnson did a one-day test shooting with a 3D rig, rather than shooting in 2D and converting, and found it, quote, a nightmare due to bulky gear, calibration issues, and restricted filmmaking options. Nevertheless, He said he believes 3D is, quote, a new challenge and is exciting. Feige insisted that the conversion would not compromise the film's image quality, as the decision to release the film in 3D was made early in development, and that, quote, an unprecedented amount of time would be devoted to the conversion process to render all the film's visual effects in true 3D. Now let's move on to the post-production side of things. In November 2010, Stanley Tucci stated that he had completed filming his scenes and that the rest of production would wrap in about 3 weeks. In February 2011, it was announced that Alan Silvestri had been chosen to compose the film's score. In March 2011, it was reported that Captain America: The First Avenger would be undergoing reshoots in the United Kingdom and in Los Angeles in April 2011. A scene was also filmed in New York City's Times Square on April 23, 2011. The film features nearly 1,600 visual effects shots, which are split between 13 different companies. To achieve the appearance of the skinny, pre-serum Steve Rogers, director Joe Johnston stated that he used 2 major techniques, saying, quote, most of the shots are done by an LA company called Lola that specializes in digital plastic surgery. The technique involving shrinking Chris in all dimensions. We shot each skinny Steve scene at least 4 times. One like a normal scene with Chris and his fellow actors in the scene, one with Chris alone in front of a green screen so his element could be reduced digitally, again with everyone in the scene but with Chris absent so that the shrunken Steve could be reinserted into the scene, and finally with a body double mimicking Chris's actions in case the second technique were required. When Chris had to interact with other characters in the scene, we either had to lower Chris or raise the other actors on apple boxes or elevated walkways to make skinny Steve shorter in comparison. For close-ups, Chris's fellow actors had to look at marks on his chin that represented where his eyes would be after the shrinking process, and Chris had to look at marks on the tops of the actor's head to represent their eyes. The second technique involved grafting Chris's head onto the body double. This technique was used mostly when Chris was sitting or lying down, or when a minimum of physical acting was required. Wowee! Captain America's shield, which serves as both a defensive tool and a weapon, came in 4 types: metal, fiberglass, rubber, and computer graphics. Prop-master Barry Gibbs stated that, quote, we had the hero shield, which was made of aluminum, for our beauty shots and close-up work. We then created a lighter shield that was aluminum faced with a fiberglass back for use on a daily basis. And then we had a stealth shield made of polyurethane, which is sort of a synthetic rubber, and we made an ultra-soft one we put on Evan's back, so that if there were an accident, it wouldn't hurt him. Good idea. Visual effects supervisor Christopher Townsend said Evans, quote, we practiced swinging the practical shield so we knew the arc and the speed at which he would move. We would take the shield from him and shoot the scene with him miming it. Then we would add in a CG shield. Hugo Weaving, who portrayed the Red Skull, wore a latex mask conceived by prosthetic makeup designer David White. The visual effects team had to manipulate his face considerably, as the mask was bulky and they wanted it to look more like tight skin wrapped around a very bony structure. They thinned out Weaving's cheeks and lower lip, hollowed out his eyes, and removed his eyelashes and nose to make him appear more like the Red Skull character. Closing credits were created by the visual effects firm Rocket, I guess that's how it's pronounced, it's ROK!T, by means of 3D and stereoscopic processing that used iconic American war propaganda, since James Montgomery Flagg's Uncle Sam Raccoon poster from World War I, and J. Howard Miller's We Can Do It poster from World War II. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Now finally onto the music of the movie. The soundtrack album for Captain America: The First Avenger includes the original score by Alan Silvestri, as well as an original song, Star Spangled Man, with the music composed by Alan Menken and lyrics by David Zippel. The soundtrack was recorded at Air Studios in London and released by Walt Disney Records on July 19, 2011. Wow. So overall, I say, yeah, it's definitely a must-watch before you see the first Avengers movie. So overall, I give Captain America: First Avenger
4 Infinity Gauntlets out of 5.
We'll tune in tomorrow as our look at Phase 1 of the MCU comes to a close with the first Avengers movie. So, until then, stay strong, true believers.